Admiral, to you, let me just echo what others have said with respect to thanking you for your service to our country. And you have certainly served in multiple roles of leadership during the time that you have served America, and you're to be congratulated for that. And thanks also to your wife for for her commitment. And I'm just pleased to hear y'all have made the wise decision of retiring to the Atlanta area, and I look forward to continuing to take advantage of you and your expertise since you'll be close by. Let me talk to you for a minute about China. You discuss in your statement the continuing growth of China and their increasing military power, obviously. Specifically, you comment that China's military modernization, and in particular its active development of capabilities in cyber and space domains, and the question all these emerging military capabilities raise among China's neighbors about its current and long-term intentions, is one of the main security challenges confronting the United States across the region. China is developing anti-access and area denial capabilities that may shift the balance of power in the region. The types of platforms and capabilities that China is developing have been interpreted by some to limit freedom of movement by potential adversaries, and also to require potential adversaries to conduct military operations at increasing distances. Can you comment on what you believe needs to be done in the Pacific theater to preserve the United States and our allies' freedom of movement and access across the region?
Thank you, Senator. I think, first of all, it needs to be understood that in terms of U.S. military presence, we remain present throughout the region and in all areas where that freedom of action is required. So whether we're talking the South China Sea, East China Sea regions, Philippine Sea, or elsewhere in the Asia-Pacific, the United States remains present. In terms of operations in what could be a potentially denied environment, I think it's very important that the United States make the necessary investments to ensure its military access to those regions. I would just offer that in the South China Sea alone, the sea lines of communication carry $5.3 trillion of regional commerce, of which $1.2 trillion is U.S. commerce. And the U.S. military must be present there to ensure the security of those sea lines of communication and that important economic commerce for the United States and for our regional allies and partners. So we will be present, and it's important that we make the necessary investments to assure that presence, even in a denied area scenario.
And in that same vein, part of the assets that you have in the inventory there now are a limited number of F-22s, and limited by the fact that we only have a limited number that have been produced. But we've maintained air superiority and air dominance in that region since the Korean War, and it's a vital part of our defensive mechanisms and posture there. Now, with those limited number of F-22s, and it looks like potentially a slowdown of the production of F-35s, are you concerned long-term? I realize short-term maybe not, but long-term. Do you foresee this as a problem when it comes to maintaining that ability of air dominance and air superiority?
Sir, I'm satisfied with, as you suggest, short-term, the number of F-22s that are on hand and available to us. I think we're all somewhat concerned long-term to see that the F-35 in its development provides the kind of capabilities to our Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps that it was designed to. So very interested to see that program remain healthy and deliver to the capabilities that we require out there.
Would you consider that weapon system imperative for the long-term availability of the capability of air dominance and air superiority?
I would. I think fifth generation capability is mandated. We've got others in the world that are developing those capabilities, and if, as you suggest, if we require to be dominant in the air in the event of a contingency, then certainly the fifth generation fighter capability is part of that equation.
General Fraser, the President's 2013 budget plans to cut strategic airlift and retire over 200 aircraft in FY13 and nearly 300 aircraft over the FIDEP. The President's budget will reduce mobility capacity by retiring all C-5As, retiring or canceling procurement of all planned C-27Js, and retiring 65 C-130s. After these retirements, there will be a fleet of 275 strategic airlifters and 318 C-130s. In addition, the Air Force will retire 20 KC-135s and maintain a fleet of 453 air refueling aircraft. With such a reduction of strategic mobility and airlift and the cancellation of a whole airplane program, how do you plan to maintain supply, personnel transport, and logistics chains that require significant airlift capabilities? And what additional airlift requirements do you foresee in the future for the various theaters in which TRANSCOM operates, and how confident are you that you're going to have the airlift capabilities that you need?
Well, Senator, thank you very much. And first off, I would start by saying that we have a new strategy. The force structure that is put forth supports that strategy, and it is also backed by some analysis that we have actually completed in looking at that strategy and also in working with the combatant commanders. With respect to specific platforms that you talked about there, I would comment first on the tankers. You mentioned 20 tanker reductions. Certainly support that. A couple of things that we have seen that are actually enabling more capability and capacity with respect to tankers is the depots have gotten better. And so as we look to the future and they have streamlined their processes, we're seeing fewer aircraft in the depot, which certainly allows us to take out some of the more costly aircraft there, and therefore the reduction with respect to those tankers. Historically, as I recall, they've always planned on about a 19% of the force being in depot, and we're seeing something more along the lines of 10% in the future, so that's added capability. Coupled with the contract in the KC-46, which is key to the future, and bringing that system online will give us both air refueling and some lift capability as we transition that aircraft into the active duty and are able to support the various theaters around the world. So the KC-46 is a part of that movement to the future and modernizing that fleet. There's also a modernization effort on the KC-135s that we need to continue on to, which enables them to be able to continue to perform in the future. They're going to have to bridge to future tanker assets as they come aboard. As I look at the 130s, the numbers that they're talking about are supportable. When I look at the 318, that also includes approximately 50 C-130s to continue to provide direct support to the Army, or apportioned support to the Army, which is something that the Air Force has moved in over time and has shown that we can do that in the theater. And I think, based on my discussions with the commanders in the field, they are very pleased with the support that they're getting with the assets that are there. The C-27, I had the opportunity recently to be in the theater. I talked to the folks there. It's performing well, and very proud of the service and what those men and women are doing. But I'd also comment that it's a costly platform. It's a niche platform. And so as we look at the strategy and we look to move into the future in a multi-capable aircraft, something like the 130 and a modernized 130J as we look to the future is something that's going to give us more capability at reduced cost, which is something that is certainly worth considering. And so when I look at that from a holistic standpoint, it's certainly supportable. The H's are going to be modernized. That's a program that is ongoing, and the Air Force needs to do that as they enter into some items that are on that aircraft that are going to time out. and give them access. And so as they optimize that fleet of the future, so it will be a very capable force, a modernized force of 318 C-130 aircraft. To the strat lift, looking at that, I am supportive of the strategy that's put forth, and as we evaluated those numbers and looking at the positive things that are happening with the C-5M, for instance, it's got a higher mission capability rate, which gives us greater capacity and capability. It's certainly the only aircraft that we can actually fly the polar routes on. You can't do that with the C-5As, for instance, and load much on it. So there's great capacity in these M's as we move to the future. So modernizing the C-5s and going to 52 C-5Ms of the future gives us greater capacity and capability with increased mission capable rates from currently about what we're seeing on the A's now around 55% to about 75%. So there's greater capacity there, and so that's very positive with respect to the strat lift. Also along the same lines, the C-17s continue to perform magnificently in the theater. Every time we have turned to the C-17, it has always been there. And so as we move to the future with the C-17s that we have, there'll be plenty of them, and so that's how we're able to come up with the strat lift to be able to support the theaters in the future. It will support the strategy, as I mentioned, and a two-war construct remains in effect. We just have to manage those forces is what we'll have to do, and that's what you were talking about there. And we in TRANSCOM will ensure that we do that to support the combatant commander requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Chambliss.